it's a big wake-up call when you have to realize there's another person here, and you begin to question, like, is this what dad life is about? Am I even good at this?
Why do nearly 1 in 10 dads experience depression in the first year, yet almost no one talks about it? Everyone prepares the moms for the newborn phase. But what happens when dad is overwhelmed, exhausted, and quietly struggling? Let's take this into context. Sleepless nights, pressure to be strong, supporting your partner while suppressing your own stress. Research shows paternal postpartum depression affects 8 to 10% of all fathers. And it usually peaks about 3 to 6 months after birth. So if you feel off, disconnected, or not like yourself, you're not broken. You're just adjusting. So today we're going to be talking about new dad shock, what no one told you about the first year on the Dad Central show. And Drew is already grinning on that. So we're talking, you're watching and listening to Dad Central, a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. Our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, because Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. And also, just at the front here, we would like to get questions from you and answer them live. So email us at podcast@dadcentral.ca. Drew, for those who are watching, you grinned about that, about our topic today. What was behind that grin?
Just an acknowledgement that, there's varying experiences that dads can have, but it's one of the most difficult transitions that a man will ever experience in their life. So it's more of just that acknowledgement, but also probably elements of reflecting back on, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember those. And of course, my journey into fatherhood started with twins. So when you said sleepless nights, there were definitely some flashbacks there. But all kidding aside, I think it's important to normalize this conversation and to acknowledge that how difficult it is. Right. So Movember did a study way back in 2019, and one of the findings was about how difficult the transition into fatherhood was. And also on the flip side, how social connectedness is one of the things that often goes by the wayside, but is also one of the most protective factors for dads as they transition to becoming new dads. But anyways, we're going to talk about some important things today. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So we're going to chat about 3 different areas today. We're first going to chat about the shock that no one warns you about. Then we're going to go into the silent struggles of new dads. And then what actually helps. So Drew, let's kick it off. The shock that no one warned you about.
Well, look, I think the biggest challenge is sometimes the identity shift that happens when you become a dad, especially if you've enjoyed your time being single and without kids, and whether you've been building your career, whether you've been very much of a free spirit, whether you've just been focused on kind of your individual goals, the things that matter most to you and living your life for you. It's a big wake-up call when you have to realize there's another person here, this little life that is fully dependent upon me and mom, and that changes things for me. If you're used to having things a certain way, being a certain way, making decisions and just going with them, that's thrown out the window a little bit at the beginning. Now, look, most dads, when they transition to new dad, they're excited, they're thrilled, they're probably nervous and scared as well. But ultimately, as time goes on, life shifts, and that euphoria and the high of the new baby being home and the excitement and all that other stuff becomes the reality, as you said, of those sleepless nights, some of the hard things that happen, maybe the relationship struggles, and you begin to question, like, is this what dad life is about? Am I even good at this? Can I even do this? Like, this isn't what I pictured and expected. And so, that loss of your freedom, your routine, asking these questions like, well, who am I now? And then, you had a beautiful picture of what it was going to be like, and then the reality, and there's that gap there. So that to me is why we'll say you get shocked, because there's these things that start to come up in life that you have to really process and make sense of. So yeah,
Yeah.
what can you add there, Ed?
Yeah. I think one of the things too is, uh, for most of us, there isn't we don't know. Well, most of us, we don't have a dad central at our doorstep. And again, people will tell us, guys will tell us what the experience is like, but still, there's not really a definitive playbook, right?
We got our new dad manual. We do our
Well,
best.
that's true, but I said before,
Yeah.
before Dad Central, and there's other organizations out there. Don't want to say we're the only one out there, but still, many, especially new dads, especially first time new dads, it's a whole new world, and they may or may not get the experiences of their dad or their parents, but when it hits you, it's like bam. And even for dad, and I think even still for dads that have had children before, it's still an experience.
Yeah. And I think if I'll add on here, Ed, depending on your background, what it was like for you growing up, you may come into fatherhood with, a whole backpack or suitcase full of your own baggage.
Oh yeah.
And the reality is that when you become a father, that baggage starts to, either get unloaded, or it starts, I don't know, the metaphor is that, it's kind of being rummaged through, and things are brought up that you maybe didn't ever want to deal with or didn't have to deal with before, but now you're kind of confronted with it in some way, shape, or form. And that can be really jarring. It can be scary. It can be confusing. It can be also quite painful because you've kept that stuff locked away in that baggage for a long time, and you don't really want to like mess around with that. You just thought that you could live your life without it, but it inevitably comes out. And this is the emotional stuff that is, I think, most important, but also the most difficult to deal with. Often very scary for men who have been socialized. You don't deal with emotions. You don't talk about emotions. You just stuff them away. And if you do those unhealthy coping mechanisms, it becomes worse and worse. And that's why I think we talk about next kind of the silent struggles of new dads. That's what leads to a lot of the postpartum depression or some of the other manifestations of unresolved past emotional wounds.
Well, you did a lovely segue into the silent struggles of new dads. So if you got the segue, run with it.
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like we should just have a panel of different dads and their experiences, in this segment. I think the reality is there was a Huffington Post article back in 2017. The dads feel like there's no safe place for them to express the real struggles that they might have when they become a new or new-ish father. I think that's proven true that we've seen. We had Mark Craven, the author of Dads Kiss Your Sons, on the podcast. He was also part of our Fatherhood Summit. He talked about the fact that, he felt selfish when he recognized he was having a hard time. He was really fearful, scared about becoming a new dad because of his past experiences. And also, he just like, I couldn't talk about my wife at the time was struggling, and I felt like a jerk and like, less of a man if I started talking about how I was struggling when my role was to support her and be strong for her and make sure that she could get through and get the support that she needed. And so I think that's common, a lot more common than we realize. So there's these mental or emotional health impacts. There's stress, anxiety, pre-existing depression or depressive like symptoms that then you add fatherhood in, and it exacerbates it. Sometimes the systems that are involved with families, they don't actually include or see dads as tremendously valuable in the process. Many dads go, if they choose to go to the appointment, sometimes they're not even looked at or not even talked to in the appointments. You hear some of these types of things. Or there's stress and strain because there's differences and different views as you prepare to become parents, or as you become new parents and you start to see how each other parents, that can sometimes create strain. And then ultimately, I've been talking a lot about this, both, when I'm out in the community and in some of the work that I've been doing recently and traveling, is that, there's a real gap in the support systems for men in general. but certainly fatherhood is one of those crucial windows where there's a significant gap, but a huge opportunity to come in and be very powerful in terms of the support and the help we can be for men and for dads when they need it most.
Agree. And I'll just add on to that. Unfortunately, men are less likely to talk about emotions. And the really challenging part about that is many times it leads to isolation. And isolation in men is not a good collaboration.
Yeah.
It's not a productive collaboration, whether it's men, whether it's fathers. It's not a good thing. So as we go into
I want to share a brief story.
Yeah.
So I was like that, right? I felt like it's up to me. I got to take care of it. I got to, I got to work hard. I just got to, that's how I was, I don't know, programmed. But I did have a friend, a good friend of mine who, in 2017, I came to him and I said, hey, we sat down, I shared with him some of my struggles. And I don't want to take this to be taken the wrong way, but my friend gave me really bad advice. And he's no longer a friend, not, for various reasons. But you have to be mindful of, are you talking to the right people or are you opening up? And so two things. One, I held it in and I didn't go to the right safe place, an actual true friend. So that's the first thing. And second, that be unwilling to actually share it is detrimental. And I think we really do, as you mentioned, need to find safe, and you like to use the word brave spaces where you can actually communicate what you're feeling, but also have somebody who can acknowledge and understand, or at least point you to somebody else who can be a really valuable help in the time of need. Because I shared some really important things and he missed important things and he gave me really bad advice. But anyways, I'll move on from there.
No problem. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And you found opportunity in a not so good experience. So that is good stuff. Let's finish off with what actually helps. Let's talk about some practical ways to survive and thrive. We don't want just to survive as a father. We want you to thrive as a father. So Drew,
yeah, let's alternate on these, Ed. So I'll go to the first one. It's what we've essentially been sharing. You should talk earlier than you think you need to. Open up, share with people, share the good, but also share what might be challenging. Again, my advice is be mindful of who you're sharing with. Ensure that they are a trusted, safe person who's actually going to care truly about what you're actually going through and not just give you, surface level or worse, ostracize or criticize you.
I'll follow up with redefine being a good dad. Presence is more important than perfection. And that phrase has come up many times in our conversations, but we can't stop reinforcing it because a lot of people want to be that perfection. And you know what? Even when you hit perfect, it only is perfect for that moment. Then life happens all over again. So really have that presence. It will go a lot longer in your journey of father than trying to be the perfect dad. Next up, Drew.
Yeah, this goes back to something we've talked about earlier this year in creating small, doable routines. So even 10 minutes of something that is beneficial for you is much healthier than just trying to suppress, deny, bury yourself in work. A 10-minute walk at the end of the day before you come into the house, or a 10-minute conversation with your partner before you both go to bed so you can get on the same page or at least hear from each other how you're both doing. 10 minutes of just focused time with a baby when the baby's just there doing something fun can help reconnect you to the baby. 10 minutes of giving your partner a break or vice versa. Anyways, you get the point. Small, doable actions are powerful.
Yeah, and finally, support your relationship intentionally. Intentionally. So remember, you and your partner are adjusting. It's again, that whole new world. So be intentional and do it together because you're both walking through this together. So I just wanted to end off on that. And just also, you don't need to have it all together. You just need to stay in it. It's a journey, not a race. So as we rewind what we chatted about today, we talked about the shock no one warns you about. Then we delve into the silent struggles of new dads. And then finally, what actually helps. We got some takeaways here. Remember, the first year hits harder emotionally than most dads expect. Then struggling doesn't mean failing. It means you're adapting. And then finally, talking even a little bit can completely change your experience. Drew, what resource do we have for our family today?
To me, the resource that we have that would be most valuable is our new dad manual. So it's got great insights, great tips. It also talks about this, the challenge of the transition into fatherhood. So, new dad manual.
Excellent. So just a closing call to action. If this episode is hitting home with you, give yourself 15 minutes to be seen or feel seen, understood, and better equipped for the journey you're already on. So that's what we want to leave you with today. So as always, I want to say thank you for giving the most important thing, your time to hang out with us today. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. And we'll chat with you soon. Be well.